excited to bring Jennifer to the stage. We are going to have hi, Jennifer. We're going to have her talking about what happens when the customer lands on your site, but then what happens after that, because it's not just about emails and SMS and all these other pieces. So I'll let you take it away, Jen.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And yeah, I think, the next level of that is, do they even get to your website, which is a lot of what we'll talk about today. Are they even landing there anymore? And what does a zero-click world look like now with the introduction of LLMs and adjusting search behaviors? So thank you for the intro, Jess. Perfect. Awesome. All right. So where did all the clicks go is the question. You may have noticed this in your own brand and your own resources or your own analytics, that organic traffic is slowly declining. I would say that's the case for maybe 8 out of 10 brands at this point that we've talked to. Everybody's kind of all over the place, but what does it mean to optimize for these LLMs and answer engines? Insert acronym here. There's a lot of conversation in the SEO space about what it should be called. But a quick intro on myself. My name is Jen Cornwell. I'm the Senior Director of AI SEO on the Innovation and Growth team here at Tenuity. So the Innovation and Growth team is really focused on how do we stay on the cutting edge of marketing. And so in the SEO space, that is a huge focus on what is happening in LLMs and in AI, and how are they interpreting brands? How are they thinking about opportunity for brands? I spent about 10 years in the traditional SEO space working with a variety of clients. So happy to bring this information here to everyone today. And I'm going to set the stage with just where did all the clicks go. So a lot of headlines lately. I could add one more here about how SEO is dead, but what we do know is that clicks are dropping off pretty rapidly. That has been happening pre-AI, pre-LLMs, because Google was starting to create this zero-click SERP for a lot of different brands or a lot of different topics. E-commerce in particular saw a lot of that, where it's bringing in different SERP features and shopping products, and you weren't competing with 9 or 10 other blue links anymore. You're competing with brands and images and those free product listings and deals and all of this stuff, faceted filters that they wanted to bring in. So trying to unpack what exactly is happening here. Some of it, I think this is a good question for brands right now, is how confident are you that your customers are still using search the same way they were a year ago? I think this is an important question because it's all relative to your brand and your particular audience, who you're trying to reach and where they are. So social searchers in particular, Instagram, TikTok users, actually really heavily lean on TikTok and Instagram as a search engine and less so on Google. Overall, Google still has the market share, right? They are still the search engine of choice, but there's quite a bit of traffic to those social platforms for that particular user type. So understanding and thinking about just who your audience is. The other thing we're seeing is the way query length is changing over time. So this is comparing web search out of like a Bing platform, this is from Microsoft, and then we're also looking at traffic patterns out of Copilot. So seeing this really large increase in query length inside of Copilot specifically. We're also seeing the same thing with AI overviews and AI overview triggers. So 10-word queries much more likely to trigger an AI overview than a one-word query, for example. But this is changing and shifting pretty rapidly as Google tries to introduce AI overviews and AI mode and really push user base into the AI platform and trying to keep up in the AI race. I also think that Ask Jeeves was ahead of his time, because really this is a lot of questions and contextual information that you wouldn't necessarily get in a traditional search query before. So if you want to check this out for your own brand, take a look in Search Console and just look and see how query length has changed over time for yourself, and maybe what questions are coming up more frequently or what's showing up as a question versus a couple word phrase. People are starting to shift toward this Ask Jeeves question model. The intent types are also pretty dramatically changing. So this is some insight from Profound, which is an AI monitoring platform that we've partnered with. But the traditional search side is transactional, commercial, navigational, informational. we are seeing much fewer informational searches and a lot more of this new intent type that they have determined as generative. So a great example of that is in traditional search, you would maybe search, how do I rate this email? And then in generative search, you don't have to search how anymore because it's just going to do it for you. So your switch has searched over to create this email for me or draft me this email. And now you have done a generative search instead. So it's starting to dig into some of the informational queries, but it's also shifting how users can get answers and really think about how they can use search to better sum up different things in their life. We're also seeing, this is from SEMrush from this past month, but the value of the traffic, the quality of the traffic from an LLM and that referral is potentially higher from a conversion perspective. So seeing it convert at a higher rate, when you're starting to talk about, I'm losing organic traffic, what do I do? I think you have to really determine whether or not you're actually losing conversions from that. Losing traffic and losing conversions are not the same thing. So what does that mean for your brand in particular? And does losing it to a platform like an LLM actually create value for your brand if it's something that you're paying attention to and optimizing for? So what we've moved from search engines, text queries, a navigational intent where somebody's looking for a brand, and then ranks and clicks was how we used to measure. What we need to move to with the, this is really shifting the perspective on organic as a marketing channel, is where we search. It has become much more diverse. That has really fragmented itself away from not just Google and Bing, but search engines outside of that. How we search has shifted pretty dramatically as well. I don't know if anyone's used in any of the LLMs, the voice to text. It's not even voice to text, you're like having a full-on conversation with a ChatGPT. That is far beyond the text queries that we used to get. And then navigational intent and conversational exploration. So having that full-on conversation with an LLM or one of these platforms where you're really trying to dig into what you're looking for and provide so much context to produce a more personalized answer ultimately. And then ranks and clicks. You are not getting the click anymore. And rankings are not really a thing inside of AI overviews. So how do you start to measure influence and sentiment instead? So influence being, are you included in the answer? And sentiment being, when you're included in there, what does it say about your brand? So this is my metaphor. I really like metaphors, especially for a topic that's maybe a little heavy. Also used Gemini for a lot of my images. So shout out to Gemini Image Creator. But really what we're shifting from is traditional search engines were tour guides. So you would ask it for something and it would show you a list of things, and what your goal as a brand was to show up on the tour, right? You wanted to be included in that set of 10 links. AI search, it's much more of a concierge approach. So now instead of showing up on the tour, your job is to brief the concierge, give the concierge enough information where they want to start to recommend you. And I think when you start to think about it that way and how your brand could be included and what that concierge could potentially say about you, really start to unpack what you need to consider and think about as a brand. So what does this user behavior shift mean for brands inside of search? AI tipping point is here. So I've mentioned this a little bit already, but 70% of informational queries on Google return AI overviews. We know zero-click is on the way. So when we talk about this SERP-less world, the SERP-less universe, there is no search engine result page anymore. It is just an answer. And then finally is how will your ads on the paid side, your paid search campaigns, be influenced by the organic conversations that are being held with the LLM itself. So I think in the last 2 weeks, Google released some insight into what their AI ads would look like. And so they mentioned in their documentation specifically that they will be looking at the organic input, the conversation that happened previously, in order to help determine what that ad output is. So what does that mean? How are you included, right? It makes organic have such a huge influence on paid and paid space and how those ads could show up for your brand. So AI now has an opinion. Agentic responses are guiding weights and biases. So they are trying to sum up the internet about your brand before you would have to rely on a customer to maybe dig through every single Reddit thread and look at every single review platform. Now LLMs are summing all of that information up and bringing it to a user. And the context that's there is also very different. I like this example of I'm buying a golf bag in traditional search on the left. I've just put in golf bags, right? That would be my typical search journey. I would get a page that looks kind of like this. It has some products, you know, a lot of things going on truly inside of that SERP. But over on the right, I'm giving it more context. Help me find a golf bag to gift my father-in-law, who is an avid golfer. Now it knows a couple things: who I'm buying it for, who the audience is, what I might care about because it's for my father-in-law and maybe he's older or has other issues that he needs to consider, things like that it can take into consideration to generate a really great, well-rounded answer. And this is a comparison. So same screenshot on the left of father-in-law to what if I'm buying for myself? Help me find a golf bag to purchase for me. I just started golfing this year. Now it knows a little bit about me because it knows me as a user. This is my paid ChatGPT subscription. But it also knows that I'm a beginner, that I just started. So the products that are being sourced here are very different. When in traditional search, golf bag would just be kind of where both of these end. Maybe we'd put a little bit more in there for women. Maybe we'd put for beginners, some of those modifiers. But all of that context generates a very different answer. So understanding how your brand sits inside of each of these sort of topic ecosystems, whether it's beginner or avid user for your product specifically, is going to be really critical in understanding the narrative. And this is, again, going back to my metaphor example, that briefing. Traditional search is really relying on that user to go and read the map that it's provided to go and find the thing it's looking for. Where in AI search, you want your product to be on that list that's going to be offered up by the concierge. Okay, what matters now and how do we measure it? So I want to get into interventions, what you can do on the SEO side, and some measurement that we need to take a look at. So a little bit more into the sort of shift. There's a really big opportunity for SEOs right now to be translators. What matters for traditional and what matters for AI SEO or optimization for LLMs. There's a lot of overlap there, but thinking about what's weighted and why it's weighted differently and how these LLMs operate, reverse engineering them a bit can help us come up with better answers that solve for both, but are AI first. So thinking about topical authority instead of query targeting, moving on from the ideas of individual keywords being the way we optimize, and thinking a lot more about your topic and content clusters. Technical SEO is still very relevant. But we're starting to see more technical agents actually go through the site. So ChatGPT agents released like mid-July. I don't know if anyone's tried them yet, but they're pretty bad. And I tried to buy flights for I just asked like flights for Thanksgiving, and it gave me some answers. It took kind of a while. It took it about 11 minutes to find me a new face wash and moisturizer for dry skin and get it into my cart. So 11 minutes is much longer than it would take me as a human. I did use it to help me PDF a pretty significant amount of content the other day, which was really valuable. So, but that is what we need to start prepping websites for at this point. Tracking keywords and clicks versus inclusion and sentiment. So how are you being included in answers and what is that sentiment score? And then finally, digital PR, seeing a resurgence here. So in traditional SEO space, really focused on backlinks and domain authority versus now it's much more about that inclusion period. And then it's thinking about what are the relevant citations for your topic. So shifting your perspective and really shifting what the KPIs are for the organic channel from rankings and clicks to influence and sentiment. So expecting to see the organic channel show up less frequently inside of analytics, be less of the driver, knowing that we are moving into the zero-click world is very important. So it's time to teach the concierge, which is the optimization framework. So starting to think about what are the insights that we can start to gather when we start to measure what our LLM visibility looks like. So on the left, we have some of what those things could look like. It's, are you being included in the answer? What are the sources that each of these platforms are citing? And where are they getting their information from to complete the answer? And what can you do with that as a brand from a strategic perspective? What is the sentiment about your brand? So when you start to ask it about, well, what is the best? And do you recommend this? What is the narrative that's been created? What are relevant prompts? What are questions that are related back to your topic? So you can cover what's called query fan out, which is this idea that the LLMs are trying to create that really holistic response. and they're looking for all of the related questions to bring answers back to create a well-rounded answer for you or for your consumer potentially. What's happening with your competitors? What's your content look like now? And what is the platform variability? So what is happening? And the way OpenAI measures things is different than the way Gemini does. So starting to think about what the differences are and what you need to weight more or less depending on what those insights are. And then interventions on the right. These are things that we know are related to traditional SEO and will be beneficial for a traditional SEO campaign, but they matter more for LLMs. So how do we start to prioritize and strategize around these? Passage optimization, article placements on the digital PR side. What does UGC look like in your realm? I think right now there is an opportunity for unpacking what is happening inside of the LLM spaces and in that tracking and measurement, and being able to understand what are the insights you can bring back to your other marketing channels. So is UGC really important and critical in LLM visibility for one of your topics? What do you do as a response and how do you strategize around that? So thinking about all these things to really generate more topical authority around a specific niche in your market. I want to talk a little bit about the science of content optimization. So SEO has been, for a long time, it's like, we know this is good. We know we want keywords in the headers, and we're pretty sure this is the right way. And it's a lot of vibes in a way. It's a lot of passed down information that's like true and tested. But what we can do now with LLMs, and this is an example from Screaming Frog, is what's called extracting the embeddings from your website. So LLMs basically have this embedding library, and it's the way that it interprets words and it understands feelings. And the embeddings are extracted as numbers. They're actually extracted as vectors specifically. You can do the same thing to your website. You can also crawl your website like with a tool like Screaming Frog and say, okay, when I crawl it using the library of embeddings from OpenAI or from Gemini, what are the scores for all of my pages? And then you get to go into cosine similarity, which is looking at how does that embedding for the term you're trying to target or the phrase, how does that match up with the embeddings within my own page, and what is their similarity score? So a higher score means you're closer. In this screenshot example, this is Screaming Frog website. It's from their website as the example here, but SEO and what is the most relevant page to the term SEO specifically for Gemini is what they're looking at. So highly recommend looking at this to start to understand relevance, and then on the right, topic clustering. So how does your content form those topic clusters? Where are there gaps? It will group your content semantically. So it will say all of these pages look like they're related. So I'm going to color all of them red versus maybe the pink cluster in this particular example where things are a little more spread out. They're a little bit looser. The green cluster at the top probably should relate to the one at the bottom. Why aren't those more related? There's a lot of things you can look at here to build into your strategy, like internal linking or content gap analysis, or pages that are really similar to each other that maybe you could make differentiate in some way or get rid of one or the other. But I think this is a really valuable way to do it with math versus doing it so much based on feeling. Also a really way to do it in a scalable method. Okay, once you have that though, so you have that topic clustering and semantic analysis, really thinking about how do you activate that insight and content. So competitor analysis, how do you evaluate the existing library that you have and figure out what those new content opportunities are. New content does not have to mean net new URLs. It could mean going into pages that already exist and trying to add value to them, trying to match those cosine similarity scores better to the term or the phrase that you're trying to optimize for a particular topic that you're trying to cluster the page with. And then finally, structured elements. So LLMs really appreciate structured content. They like hierarchy. They like HTML tables. FAQs are a really great example. It likes that question and answer format, and that the answer is also very specific to the question directly above it. So generating or creating your content content in a way that's going to structure for LLM readability. It also should be good for your user at the end of the day. Having content that's structured well is also positive for your consumer, so those that are still visiting the website. One of the other things that's a great unlock in understanding your topic ecosystem is citations and citation relevance. So citations in LLMs are the sites that it's sourcing when it generates the answer. So what we're looking at are two totally different businesses. One is an e-commerce on the right, and the other is a lead gen on the left. There is some overlap, right? I think like Reddit is in both of these. YouTube is usually one that's in both. Wikipedia too sometimes, but it really depends on the topic. So that's where citations are relevant based on the weight that is being provided by the LLM. So it varies from platform to platform, what types of sites they source. It varies from topic to topic as well. So anecdotally, we went and updated our DesignRush profile. It saw a nice surge in Copilot visibility for a particular topic. And really what we did was just make sure that our profile was aligned with what we would want for our brand. So there are some quick wins like that. And then there are other things that are a longer tail strategy. In modern digital PR, what that really means, and what I'll sum up here for sake of time, is just thought leadership. Data inside of your content and responses is really critical. There's been studies done that LLMs prefer data-backed content or data-backed opinions. It's also looking for perspective. So what can you add value to as an expert in the space? It's also looking for freshness. There was a study comparing traditional search engines to LLMs, and LLMs are much more likely to cite a source that is more recent. So the recency of when that publication was published also comes into play here. So tracking all of that and really monitoring how citations are shifting over time. Video is a great example. So this is some examples I pulled from this last week. Did some analysis for a client, noticed that their YouTube citations were seeing a decent trend up since August 5th. Took a look at some other topics and saw the same thing across most of the topics that we were tracking. So this means that YouTube is being cited more often, but we still need to dig into how relevant is it for each of these brands. Is this something that they definitely need to invest in? Is this a #1 cited source? Or is this something that falls into the 20s, 30s, 40s, et cetera, where yes, we want to pay attention to it, but it's maybe not so important for us to focus on right now. So I think resource allocation is also really critical in this analysis. It's easy to feel like with any SEO item that you could boil the ocean. I don't know if anyone's ever seen like an SEMrush audit, and it's just this like laundry list of things that you could go and do. Really important to think about what is the priority. And I think, as an agency, that is our job, is to come in and say, this is really where it's the highest impact item and the lowest amount of effort for us, and we will get the most value from this execution or intervention. Cool. So some primary metrics, hit on a lot of these. Visibility, how often is your brand mentioned? Sentiment, I think, is also important. How are people talking about your brand in a ChatGPT or an OpenAI, et cetera? Citations, what are the themes associated with your brand? What are the prompts you should be tracking? We are not getting any data from these platforms directly, so it's all modeled. So because of that, when you create your modeled tracking environment inside of a platform, what are the prompts that are going to give you the most value? And then benchmarking, so just how you stack up against competitors and what they look like in the space is also really critical. So how often is your brand included? This is your visibility. This is an example. We have partnered with Profound, but being able to understand by platform and by competitor or by topic, what is each LLM saying? This is some of that sentiment scoring that I was talking about. And what does that look like over time by topic, by platform? And finally, what can you do right now? So just to wrap us up, you can build and organize for the concierge. So check your SEO foundations. We have had a lot of conversations with clients who are coming to us and saying, we've never done SEO actually, and now we're kind of worried about this AI thing. So that's okay. There's still some juice to squeeze out of traditional search. And a lot of the foundational fundamentals from a technical perspective really benefit you inside of the LLM space. You can track and measure your LLM presence. So there are a lot of platforms popping up now. We have partnered with Profound. But there are a variety, and they're all taking sort of a different perspective on the data. We thought Profound is the most robust and the most granular, which is why we went with them. But there are a lot of options there for you. Analyzing your topic ecosystem. So once you're tracking your topics, really what those platforms are doing is tracking a topic and telling you where your brand sits within it. What you also want to know is who else is in there with you, what else is in there with you, what are those citations, what are those other players, is it YouTube, is it affiliate, is it UGC, what are the things you really need to think about and focus on based on what the topic cares about. And then reviewing your on-site content structures is a really low-hanging fruit opportunity. Just today, going and looking through your top pages and saying, is this structured well? Is there a way I could improve it? Better headers, more concise paragraphs and passages, FAQs, HTML tables, really likes like some old school HTML stuff. What could I do to create clarity here for both my customer and for an LLM that would benefit both? And that is my quick check on AI SEO.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for covering all of those things. I'm really glad that we like ended on this note about AI and SEO searching, because it's something that is a hot topic right now, but nobody really like knows much about it, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's normal to, we're all figuring it out at the same time to a degree, right? And it's also very rapidly changing. So like GPT-5 released, right? It works different than GPT-4. So what does that mean for your brand? How does it change things? So right now it's like knowledge is power, and tracking and understanding is the best thing to do, to really understand, where your audience will eventually be if they're not already.
Yeah, and I think that the key thing too is just starting somewhere. At some point, like you said that, and I think it's just starting because like nothing that I think that's the problem, is that it seems so overwhelming at this point because there's so much information out there, and you're just like, how do I even start? Like, I'm trying to get through the funnel. I'm just trying to get a customer. Okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. And there is totally, again, all audiences are not in LLMs yet. So a lot of the best practices for AI are going to benefit you on the organic channel from traditional search too. So it's still valuable, right? It's like value now and value later.
Yeah, totally. I do have like 2 follow-up questions for you of just like what your opinion is, since you are such an expert in this space. How do you think that this will change the impulse buying behavior? Because I think it like adds that extra layer of research. And of course you were sharing your example of 11 minutes, but like even that slowness, and then the fact that like you build out these GPTs that like know you.
Right.
So like, can you be impulsive still?
I think, so we've seen a couple platforms start to roll out on-site GPTs, and they're almost like in an apparel capacity, right? It's like a stylist. And you actually tell it like what you're looking for. So I think there's an opportunity for some brands to maybe unlock like a larger order, right? It's like you're going to a wedding, well, you need shoes and you need a dress, or maybe you want a skirt and shirt combo. And so it's almost like this ability to create add-ons. And then, yeah, the research side of it, I mean, also anecdotally, I bought a watch recently as a gift. I don't know anything about watches. So I knew what budget I wanted. So I just went to ChatGPT. I did a little research. I looked at the products, picked one I liked, and that was it. And so, yeah, and I purchased not through ChatGPT, but as a referral.
Yeah.
For the research. So I think there's still opportunity for impulse buys. I think it also varies by your vertical, right? Like beauty, skincare, there's like a price point for impulse buys that's still gonna be impacted.
Yeah, I think that's like a really good example of like using it for like the research part of it, and maybe not buying it within. Like I did that actually just the other day. I'm like gonna buy my husband, he's not listening to any of this stuff, so I'm gonna buy my husband like a nice like coffee setup, right? And I went like on a researching hole from it, and I was like, okay, cool. Look, researched here, and it like was able to tell me because I wanted to do the pros and cons, and I'm spending a pretty penny on it. It's not like I'm just going in a Black and Decker. Like I'm trying to do like a Breville or like and then up. And so I did the pros and cons, did the research of it, like asked it, well, in this price range, what would you recommend if you had like unlimited dollars? And it gave me like all the highs into like the lows. And from there, I then like went and like purchased it from like the website, you know, that I had like a gift card on, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's the other thing it does is it'll help you find, it's really focused on price, which makes sense, but find like all the opportunities and give you some pricing information so you can go and find maybe what your best option is, or to your point, like, oh, wow, they sell it here and I have a gift card and that's going to be better for me. So it's just a lot less time on the consumer, I think, to have all that stuff.
Yeah, totally. Well, Jen, thank you so much for joining. That was so informative and I appreciate you.